Am I on? We good? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the December 9th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting. I will turn everything over to Donna Witt. Yes?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good afternoon. So our first item on our agenda is the 2026 Virginia Department of Fire Programs. And Interim Chief Wright is here to present.
Good afternoon, Finance Committee and council members. Pleasure to be here to make a request on behalf of the fire department for some gear extractors, 2 of them to be exact. We are applying for a grant from the 2026 Virginia Department of Fire Programs mini grant program. The total amount that we're applying for is $30,000. Unfortunately, that will not cover the full amount, but I think it's about $1,500 to $2,000 worth of shipping and delivery fees to set the new extractors up. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have, but these are replacing, I should note, these are replacing extractors that are about 20 years old or greater. So they've reached the end of their useful life. And in fact, one of them has already given up on us. So we had to order one that we're paying for out of our general funds. And hopefully we'll be able to get the grant and apply that back to the general fund budget. So
Okay.
like I said, I'll come up for air and let you ask whatever questions you have.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for anyone in council?
We have received it for PPE in the past, but only one time that I'm aware of. So there may be others. Are you just aware of one for the USAR grant? Yes. So I'm just aware of one time we received it.
For the police and fire, it's so important for us to supplement a lot of the costs we have with different grants. So I commend the departments for searching out different grants to help cover some of the expenses for our different services that we need. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And here with me today is Battalion Chief Jennifer Collins, who helped spearhead this grant. She's our health and safety officer.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion for approval?
So move.
Throw a second. Okay. You want to speak to your motion?
No other questions.
Speak to your second? No? Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, great. Well, then,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you very
so
much. Thank you, sir.
Next item on our agenda is for the State Opioid Response Grant for the Behavioral Health Docket. And Allie Smith is here to present.
Hello.
I'm Allie Smith. I'm the docket coordinator for the behavioral health docket. Our docket began in 2024, the beginning of 2024. So we're still getting our footing in some things, especially with funding. The State Opioid Response Program was gracious enough to award us with $39,954. We're going to put this towards treatment and training, as well as some supplies for us and for the docket. So on behalf of the behavioral health docket, we're asking that you guys would amend the budget to appropriate that funding.
Okay, great. Any questions for anybody?
Sorry, you said amend the budget? I'm sorry.
That's the typical way,
Okay.
technically, that we appropriate grant funds. So it's just appropriating the grant funds, and this will come before you on January 14th, whatever the
13th, 14th,
whatever the first meeting in
whatever it is.
January is.
Any questions? Any questions there?
Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, of course.
That's a great grant. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve?
13th, you're right.
So moved.
Second?
Yeah.
Yes?
Mhm.
Speak to it?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Well, great. Then it's passed and we wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Happy holidays if we don't see you again before the new year.
Our next item on the agenda, Stephanie Suter, who's our procurement manager, is here to provide information on the ins and outs of procurement law. This was requested, I don't know, a while back, and so she's here to make that presentation.
You can.
With respect to Suter, it has to be moved to the next item. And it's not to slight you. I don't need an education that was asked for by the previous leadership of this committee. You don't have to oblige it. I'm just asking. We have other stuff to get to, and digging into procurement law may not be the highest and
Does
best use of our
anybody
time.
feel we need to have this?
Well, it's always good to learn more information.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
I can go with the body.
Let's do it.
You're not going to hurt my feelings
Yeah.
either way.
If you want to do a real quick overview, I
I
don't
can
want
do
to
it.
have wasted your time.
Sure.
That'd be fine.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to showcase the procurement division and tell you a little bit about what we do and why we do it. Today, I'll provide a brief overview of the procurement division, highlight key aspects of the Virginia Public Procurement Act and City Code Section 18.1, then answer any questions you may have. There are 5 members of the procurement team, including myself, overseeing the procurement for both the city and Lynchburg City Schools. Given the variety and level of expertise needed, we focus on training and shadowing for each new employee so they are able to onboard quickly and oversee their own project shortly after joining the team. Compliance with laws and regulations is essential to the success of each project and is a critical component of our daily operations. Once each staff member has the prerequisite training and years of experience, they test for certification, and I'm proud to announce we have 100% success in passing that exam on the first time. So our staff is incredible. We work to foster positive relationships with our internal and external clients. All city and school departments, employees, citizens, and the business community are considered our clients. Can you go back one more? No, that's okay. Let's see. There can be the perception that we always go with low bid without regard for quality. That's not the case, as we want to ensure we are obtaining the appropriate class of goods and services so departments can operate effectively and provide exceptional service for our citizens. Depending on what we are procuring, quality, qualifications, and expertise and ability to successfully deliver are taken into account when determining award of contracts. In addition to goods and services, we also issue solicitations for construction for city and schools. While we primarily utilize the traditional design bid build solicitation process for bidding CIP projects, the city also has the ability to award construction projects through design build, construction management, PPTA, and PPEA. Procurement staff post all solicitations to the city's website, as well as distribution through the state's procurement system, which is EVA. The postings on EVA allow us to reach all businesses registered with the state to provide the specific goods, service, or type of construction that we need. So we reach thousands of vendors typically. So we're not, we want to encourage construction or competition and make sure that we're reaching everyone that can provide that for us. In order to simplify processes and promote efficiencies, we have standardized procedures, solicitation documents, and contract templates. This provides a greater understanding for how the city executes contracts, not only for departments, but also for those competing for city business. Our construction bid documents include general terms and conditions, and contractors are familiar with how things are handled not only during the bidding process, but once they are out in the field. So it makes it easy for things to move forward. Working with businesses so they know the city's procurement process and ensure they have requirements in place to work with the city is an essential component of our work. We also provided feedback to those who are not selected so they understand the process and what they can do better for next time. All right. The VPPA, this is why we do what we do. So the state General Assembly has created the Virginia Public Procurement Act, and this is what we follow on a daily basis. It establishes policies and procedures that ensure transparency, fairness, and efficiency in how the city acquires goods and services and procures construction. So by following the VPPA, we ensure all procurement procedures are conducted in a fair and impartial manner, avoiding any impropriety or appearance of impropriety. Seeking the maximum feasible degree of competition among qualified vendors for the city's business is our goal. Following the VPPA also ensures all interested businesses understand how we are going to award each contract and that they all have the same information. Also seeks to get the most for each taxpayer dollar, maintains open and efficient administrative procedures. We don't want to delay execution of contracts with inefficiencies. So best value can also be seen as appropriate value. If we only need, a Chevrolet, we don't need to buy the Cadillac, right? So it's getting the appropriate value for what we need. Yeah. So we want to secure the right goods and services at a fair price while meeting all project and policy objectives. We look at life cycle cost, quality, and performance as well as price. All right. The VPPA also sets strict ethical standards to prevent conflicts of interest and maintain the integrity of the process. 5 methods of procurement are defined by the VPPA. While the single quote limit for the city is $10,000, more often than not, we are still getting quotes, especially for goods that fall in this range. A minimum of 3 written quotes are needed for procurements within the $10,000 to $50,000 range. This includes all phases. So if we need a service that's $25,000 and we're going to do that over a few years, that doesn't count as a small dollar purchase. That counts as we need to bid that because it's going to be over that $50,000 threshold. These dollar thresholds are set by council and are in city code. The VPPA has increased these values over the years, but city code has stayed the same. So we're still working with those small purchase thresholds there. Competitive sealed bidding, otherwise known as an invitation for bid, is conducted for most construction, goods, and non-professional services exceeding $50,000. This is when we know what we want, and there are many companies that are able to provide it. This goes for like construction projects that are engineered, water sewer line replacements, facility renovations, chemicals for water plant, that type of thing. All right, competitive negotiation, otherwise known as a request for proposal, is conducted for all professional services and in the cases where we are looking for the best solution. So we might know what we want the outcome to be, but we might not know exactly how to get there. So this is where we're relying on the expertise for firms who are submitting proposals. We typically review those proposals based off the evaluation criteria that are specified. And it's, experience, successful completion of similar projects, expertise of proposed staff. Those are the types of things that we're looking for there. The city may also determine if a certain procurement is a sole source. This could be a result of a standardization where only one vendor has the market to sell a specific good to the city, or when only one vendor can provide what the city needs. We have this for a couple of water chemicals. Where if we changed them out, it could, mess up the system. So, but we do look at those annually to make sure that there's nothing else on the market that'll work for that. All right. An emergency is a situation where there is the occurrence of threat of harm to the population, property, or natural resources. Luckily, we don't have these very often. So we're good there. When they do, we're able to expedite any services or needed repairs by utilizing any awarded contracts that we already have or soliciting quotes for any repairs that we need to do. Another term you may have heard is cooperative contract. This is when the city can use another public body's contract to get optimal pricing and obtain administrative efficiencies. These contracts have also gone through either a bidding or RFP process by another public body, and we're able to use those contracts for that. The contract has to be for what we need, right? So if Roanoke bid a 2024 refuse truck, we can't get a 2026 refuse truck from that same contract. So it has to be for exactly what we're looking for there. For all procurement methods, including sole sources and emergencies, we publicly post notice of award, which provides a 10-day protest period. So while we have had very few protests in my 20 plus years, it does provide the opportunity for bidders and offerers to question the award should they feel something was done incorrectly, and ensures we are open and transparent with how we're transacting business. That's important. Okay. All right. The city code incorporates all sections of the VPPA except for those specifically exempted in section 18.1-4. Back when we did this 20 years ago, the VPPA stated timely. It didn't, and it's not specific to, our procedures, like going to the city manager, going to the city attorney and that type of thing. So we created separate procedures for the city. So those are the only ones that are exempted. So specific procedures for these exempted sections: set the small purchase procedures, designate timelines and court of jurisdiction for things as protest, contractual disputes, and other legal actions. Having specific city procedures provides a definitive approach to handling issues and sets the days allowed for all parties to respond. This allows us to handle business in an efficient manner and holds everyone involved accountable to a timely response, including us. So, if we set 10 days for them, we have the same, kind of, so we can't drag our feet either. So it works out well to keep on moving, right? So this is where the city has established authority for procurement of Lynchburg City Schools. So the city code also, states that for us. Also provides the authority and procedures for alternative construction methods. So you'll see a section in the city code for design, build, construction management, and the use of PPTA and PPEA. So it's been quite some time since we updated that section. And I've been working with Matt Friedman. When we did this back in 2025, we added 18.1, but we did not repeal section 18, article 6. So we'll be working with him and probably bringing that back to the January Finance Committee meeting. Okay. Well, thank you for your time. That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was
Sure.
great. We appreciate all the time you put into that. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay.
No?
Well, thank you very much.
See, and the city now knows a lot more about procurement than they ever thought that they would. So it's very important. So,
Well, it was a high-level overview, so hopefully it was helpful.
well, it was helpful.
I would just like to say, I've worked in a city where procurement doesn't work particularly well. And coming to Lynchburg, one of the things that has been just a really an area where we work incredibly effectively and efficiently is the procurement office, and a lot of credit to Stephanie and her team. They do a phenomenal job, and they have great reputation both internally to all of the department level customers and also externally to all the contractors we work with. So kudos to you and your team. Do a great job.
All right, great. Thank you.
Shout out to procurement.
So a person on the school systems on your team as well, you said?
So we have the authority to do the schools procurement. So we work with school staff in their departments,
So
but
what
they
is-
don't have a separate procurement person. Just our team does, schools as needed.
And do you use consultants from that side as needed? Like if it was a counseling matter or whatever case may be, a procurement matter, expertise where a school is needed. Is that how you do that?
Mhm. Well, we just currently worked with the school's administration to select their consultant for their strategic plan. So it's kind of similar how we work in this way with city departments and employees. It's the same for schools. We're like an arm of the schools.
What does VPPA stand for again? I'm sorry.
The Virginia Public Procurement Act.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right, up next are the quarterly reports.
Thank you so much. So, yes, here to present the Greater Lynchburg Transit Company is Joshua Moore.
Hello.
So this covers our fourth quarter report for the end of this past fiscal year. So this is both the quarterly report and just kind of a synopsis for the end of the year. We had experienced higher health insurance costs, so you see that reflected in our fringes. Other things for this year are fuel costs that remain fairly stable. We had some hiccups with tires early on, tire pricing volatility, and then parts volatility has gone up and down and is something that we watch, but has been something that has been very intermittent through the year. On those same notes, we are starting to experience a little bit of a lag in what we're getting for some of our federal operating assistance and state operating assistance. Partially that's due to us reaching the next step down in our state operating assistance grants. We have a grant that has a step down after X many dollars are spent, so that we don't have an exact timeline for when we hit it. So when that steps down, we get a lower reimbursement rate. And on the federal side, we can only reimburse what we have for reimbursable expenses as well as local match. So that number varies up and down. Generally for the year, we finished fairly strongly. A couple things just to note, if you look at demand response, for the quarter, we have a negative 31,000 in that line item for our IT on demand response. We did not get money back as much as that would like to be the case, but that is where we actually had to reverse out some accruals from a piece of software. The vendor is having some trouble keeping the software up to date and running according to the contract we have. So there are some targets in there where if they don't meet, we don't pay certain deliverables. So well, that sounds good. We actually want the software to work. So that's something that we're looking at with them. And then generally we finished the year with a slight surplus, just over 16,000. So we're a high level overview. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Questions? Okay, well, great.
Well, thank you much.
Appreciate it.
Next, we have Kathy Vance is here to present the regional airport.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and the members of the committee. Mr. Simon is currently attending a security symposium in Washington, D.C., and as a result, I will be presenting the fourth quarter FY25 financial report on his behalf. As stated, my name is Kathy Vance, and I serve as the Assistant Airport Director in the Finance Administration. Throughout the fourth quarter, the Airport Enterprise Fund has remained healthy and balanced as we continue to maintain our facilities and attract new business opportunities. Overall, for the quarter, our airport revenues continue to perform strongly, with direct operating revenues increasing by a little over 13% compared to the same as last year. Our total operating revenues for FY25 include some of the areas in our Terminal Revenue Center. We've increased by about $114,000, driven by our updated car rental agreements, which were almost over 20 years old. So we actually went through and revamped them and got everything up to date. And our upgraded parking equipment, which right now we are monitoring and making sure everybody's paying their parking tickets as they are entering and leaving. General Aviation Revenue Center has increased by about $88,000, primarily due to the higher aviation fuel sales and the increased renewals of hangar rentals and facility leases, part and due of Freedom's overhaul of their entire leasehold that we have with them. In the interest and other revenue center, we have increased by about $69,000 due to the fact that the interest earned on our retained earnings is extremely high. In our expenses, we've experienced some increases in workforce-related costs and utilities. Highlighted areas are in our terminal, the decrease of about $27,000 reflects the gradual transition of our custodial services from an in-house personnel to a contracted services, which were full-blown in that contract. Also in the area of public safety, fire and safety center, we have an increase of about $102,000 due to the extended staffing hours to support our expanded airline operating schedules. And another area of increases in our small projects and equipment of about $176,000 due to greater number of state-supported, 80% funded by the state project that originally anticipated. At this point, the airport has reported an operating surplus of approximately $301,000 for this past year. This concludes my report for the fourth quarter, and I'm happy to answer any questions and will ensure that any follow-ups are directed to Mr. Simon.
Thank you so much. Any questions for anyone or comments?
Just a question. Did the surplus 311,000?
301.
How does that work? Surplus?
Our surplus happens to be That number does not have any of our GASB, which is a lot of our retirement entries that are done at the end of the year. That actually it went down to about 30-some thousand. So when we did our GASB entries, all the retirement entries, we do not know those entries until almost the last day of the entire year, because that's an actuarial amount that is given to us by finance. Mhm. Mhm.
Is that new airline started? What was that?
It's March 24th.
Okay, I was curious, but I'll ask it. March 24th. Okay. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I like the fact that everything increased.
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes,
And you see the DC-8 that's sitting on there, that's
Yes.
also going to be an increase too
Yes,
per
ma'am.
month. Just to negotiate that little permit.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Next up, we have Preston Sellers with the Juvenile Detention Center and also the Children's Services Act Fund.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chair, council members, city leadership. As Don said, I'm Preston Sellers. I'm here to present the finance reports for the Juvenile Detention Center as well as the Children's Services Act. So our FY 25 fourth quarter Juvenile Detention Center report total revenues is $3,371,557. And his revenue sources include our charges for services. These are payments received from participating localities for the youth in our detention centers, the Department of Juvenile Justice block grant, and these are funds for operational and staffing and other facility needs. And also our U.S. Department of Agriculture, which are federal reimbursements for meals served to the residents. Now, what I like to do real quick is give you some information, some more details on this particular revenue source, the juvenile, USDA block grant. So as of FY 26, we will no longer receive that block grant, part of due to changes within USDA. What they've asked that we do in order to receive that grant, we would have to become our own nutrition school lunch program sponsor. And what that entails us hiring 2 new staff, nutritionists, as well as a food manager and administrator. And that equates to about $202,000 annually for those 2 positions. So we would have to hire those 2 positions, and plus we would still only receive about $50,000 from USDA, which we're still being in negative. So, and looking at the scope of things, that just didn't seem to be the best financial move to make. So what that does is, yes, we will not receive that funding from USDA. However, it gives us the leeway to now our purchasing power. We're not restricted to just particular entities within the city. We can purchase this in different bulk positions, different entities, still nutritional food for everyone. We don't have to hire those 2 people. So we're not missing any kind of nutritional meals from the kids. Yes, we do have to make up that deficit, but we anticipate doing that with some of the strategic plan that we're going to do within the detention center moving forward. I want to pause there just for a second. I know that was a lot before I move forward, just to see if you had any questions about that particular situation.
So I'll guess, Dr. Wilder and I may understand what you just said better than the average person. So the blessing of some of these grants that provide food to our kiddos or our youth are wonderful, but they do have very strict requirements on them of what can be purchased with them. So while they are a gift and a blessing, they do require specific types of food with very specific ingredients that can make it challenging, and even specific brands or so forth. So while you're losing this specific grant, it does give you now freedom, because while you're trying to watch, since it was going to be more expensive for you to hire the 2 people required in order to keep it, it was not going to be cost effective for you to do that.
Exactly.
So you're losing the money, but you may actually be able to save some money now, having the freedom to buy other things that you were limited to buying with that grant. So you might be able to actually spend maybe less than you were getting in the grant if you are more creative in what you buy, potentially, because I know that there are a lot of, again, they're gifts and they're wonderful, the grants, but they do have restrictions on them. So maybe you can be creative in your buying abilities.
You hit it exactly.
Yes,
So-
yes. So
so
great. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So our total thank you. Our total
Yes, thank
expenditures through the fourth quarter were $3,371,553. And our most notable increases in spendings attributed to our salaries and miscellaneous and other charges reflecting the workforce needs and the rising operational costs. General recap, our FY25 fourth quarter revenues were $3.7 million. Our expenditures were $3.7 million, which we come up with a net balance. Operational snapshot, our current per diem is $330 per day. The average youth population this quarter were 19 youth compared to 20 youth last year this quarter. And Lynchburg has 68% of the youth in the population of the youth in the detention center. As of today, we have 17 youth in the detention center. 10 are from Lynchburg, 4 Campbell County, 2 Appomattox, and 1 Nelson County. That concludes my report for detention center, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you.
So my next report would be from the Children's Services Act. Lynchburg's CSA total revenue FY25 fourth quarter was $13,720,000. Our revenue sources include our public assistance, revenues from Lynchburg City Schools, a transfer from the general funds, as well as our miscellaneous and welfare expenses. This represents a 28% increase compared to the same quarter of the last fiscal year, and some of the key contributors include public assistance. So we had an increase in public assistance funding, which also equated to an increase in general funds, funding that we received from the general funds transfer, and also an increase in the special miscellaneous welfare. Our expenditures, CSA's expenditures through the fourth quarter FY25 was $13,940,000. And that's actually reflecting a 32% increase compared to the same quarter last year. And these increases primarily due to my top 3, youth and foster care, special education, and community-based services. And that's a trend I would tell you, if you look back at any other quarters, those are my top expenditures, foster care, special education, and community-based services. Quick recap, our total revenues is right at $13.7 million. Our expenditures actually came in at $13.9 million, which is about a $210 variance. Now, one of the things to point out is although we summarized this report ending in June, the fourth quarter June, CSA's quarters, actually the year doesn't actually end to September. So some of the expenditures and revenue that's reporting today, they're going to come in my first quarter report. Come FY20 for the FY26 first quarter report. So that's why you see that variance. And that, again, that's a normal trend for CSA when we get to the end of the year. With that, I am available for any questions.
Any questions? No questions? Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next up, we have Tim Mitchell here to present the water, sewer, and stormwater funds.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Mayor. Good to see you.
Hello.
All right.
You're kind of famous right now. Everybody's talking about water right now. Or at least certainly last week they were.
Yeah,
It could have been a scary time, but you guys rebounded really well. So everything's great.
well,
Good job.
a big shout out to our crews that
Yes.
responded. We had
Yeah.
between Monday night and Tuesday morning throughout the night, we had over 40 people working on it. And just a little trivia. We calculated the volume of water, and it was about 14,000 gallons per minute, or somewhere between 800,000 and a million gallons of water that flowed through the pipe.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
pretty significant break, but our crews responded very well.
Yeah. Well, and it gave great explanation as to how important it is that we're replacing the old pipes downtown, because
Exactly.
that was the reason, right?
Yes. Yep.
So good job.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, as far as the water fund goes, year end, we finished the year with our overall water revenues about a budget, a little bit less, about $38,597 less than we budgeted for. Most of that was related to charges for services. Overall, the water use in the city is down by about 5%. Even with the growth, we're seeing a trend of declining water consumption. So revenues for charges for services were about $242,000 less than we budgeted for. That was partially offset by interest earnings of $165,000. Going into water expenses, overall, our expenses were $737,000 less than budget. Our operations and maintenance expenses were about $75,000 under budget. Some of that was related to just a net of increase in personnel costs related to overtime expenses, about $62,000 more in overtime expenses. We had about $136,000 savings in chemical costs, and that was a couple factors. We had favorable chemical prices through the year. Also, most of our water, over 99% of our water in FY25 came from Peddler Reservoir, and anytime we're using Peddler, our expenses, our chemical expenses and power expenses are less. We had an additional expense of about $47,000 in our power costs due to unexpected power rates. We had about $174,000 savings in contractual services, and a lot of these services are related to when we have major water line breaks. Sometimes we have a contractor come in and help us with the repair. We didn't have a lot of that last year. We'll see more of that this year with this current break. And then we had a $200,000 self-insurance claim that we weren't anticipating. Some additional savings was about $7,500 in work because of lower workers' comp claims. We had $252,000 less in capital outlay due to deferral of a new vehicle purchase and some unused funds related to water treatment plant equipment replacement. And then we had about $400,000 less in debt service associated with lesser use of our line of credit and some project delays associated with easement acquisition. And overall, for the water fund, we finished within council's adopted financial policies with a debt coverage ratio of 1.33 and a fund balance of 36%. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions about the water fund.
Questions? Nope. No questions so far.
All right,
Thank you.
moving on to the sewer fund. Sewer fund, our revenues were pretty significantly more than we budgeted for, about $1.7 million more than budget. Of this, about $192,000 were above budget for charges for services. Overall, sewer use is associated with water use, so when we have lower water use, we also have lower sewer use as well. $593,000 less in revenues than we anticipated because of that, but that was offset by increases in septic hauler charges. This is leachate, septic tank pump outs and that type of thing. And then higher connection and availability fees. So a lot more new connections than we anticipated. Our sewer contract revenue, and this is we have two industrial contracts, Frito-Lay and Certainty, as well as the 3 surrounding counties. That was above budget by about $890,000. And most of that was related to industrial surcharges to the 2 industrial contracts. And then we also received an additional $586,000 in interest earnings and investments. Our expenses were about $1.5 million less than budget. So our operations and maintenance budget itself was about $308,000 less than budget. We had about $361,000 less in personnel services related to vacancies. And I'm sorry, that was $362,000 more in personal services related to overtime expenses associated with covering vacancies and having a required licensed operator at the wastewater treatment plant. Chemical prices, we had about a $322,000 savings there. $150,000 savings in supplies and materials because of decreased purchases for tools and laboratory equipment. We had a $260,000 savings associated with deferring roof replacements until this year instead of last year. And then similar to the water fund, we had a $200,000 self-insurance claim that was split between the water fund and sewer fund. Non-departmental, about a $56,000 savings related to self-insurance claims. I believe that was not self-insurance. I think that was related to workers' comp. Capital outlay, we had an $830,000 savings in capital outlay because we were deferred a retrofit of a sewer camera truck. 3 new sludge trailers did not arrive in 2025, and then we had less than anticipated equipment breakdowns. Our debt service was about $300,000 less than budget, again, due to lesser use of the line of credit and some project delays associated with easement issues and the lack of bidders. We rejected bids on a couple projects that were significantly higher than we had budgeted for. And then overall for the sewer fund, we met or exceed council's financial policies with a debt coverage ratio of 1.51 and a fund balance of 51%. Again, glad to answer any questions on the sewer fund.
Councilman Friday?
Thank you for your report. So where I'm coming from, the numbers are good on a balance sheet, but we just increased the stormwater, water, and sewer fees. We've done that 3 or 4 years in a row. The argument that we're told is, well, increased costs on chemicals, like you mentioned, but then I think you said $300,000 less than expected on some things. And I know I'm conflating some stuff, so it's not intentional. So if it sounds like I'm conflating things and trying to manipulate it, that's not my intent. But help me understand applying that across the board. You know, we're asking for year-over-year increases on the water, stormwater, and sewer fees, and we're seeing a 51% fund balance for was this sewer as an example. I do recognize that water was less than that, not nearly as pretty, but you understand where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. And sewer rates, again, are dictated by our consent order, which hopefully we're getting close to the end of their CSO program and can get out from under that umbrella and that requirement.
May I interject?
Yes.
I understand that.
Right.
The folks at home may have just learned that. So we're under this order from Richmond that whenever we're finished with the combined sewer overflow, the CSO, we're good. We can come out of that. But is there any recourse we can do? Because year over year, we've asked folks to dollar, pay more. And the argument is, well, the service costs more. Sure, but the numbers we're seeing, it actually isn't based off of what we're experiencing. So, and I know it's a very small increase, but 6 years ago when I first got elected, it's almost $10, $15 less, or however much it might, the numbers actually come out. So we can't go to them and say, hey, look at all this progress we're making. And by the way, you're asking us to make this increase yet again, even though the returns are what they are. Yeah.
So changing that would require a renegotiation of our consent order. And I think we're close enough. We anticipate we'll be done with everything before 2030. So within the next 4 or 5 years, we should be done with the program. And going through that negotiation is a pretty long process. Mm-hmm. But if we're not investing, one of the things we do every year is we kind of start with, when we put our budgets together, we look at where we are with their fund balance, and we have to be, not only do we need to meet council's policy, we also have to meet the consent order requirements. So we're actually over the consent order requirements with the fund balance,
which is
we have to be between 25 and 50%.
Okay. Amount of money in the bank.
Right.
Yeah. No, I was tracking that. I was asking what's the consent order requirement?
We're just barely over that. So
and council's requirement
is under 50%, I think, or maybe it's 40%.
This is 25%, 40%.
40%. I'm sorry. Okay. So we are, and that 40% is actually, I guess that is the consent order requirement as well. So we do have, this year we ended up higher than that. So what we do with that is we move that additional money into pay-as-you-go capital projects. And then we present that to DEQ as the compliance piece of our order. So with the I'm trying to think about how to answer your question, because I don't want to try, I'm not, definitely not trying to avoid your question.
I don't believe you are, and I know our hands are handcuffed to some degree on this. The question has to be asked because year over year, like I said already, and I don't need to repeat myself, and I don't want to belabor the point. This is an enterprise fund, meaning, and we all know this, but just for regurgitating it, it's supposed to pay for itself.
Right.
And any overages, as you said, supposed to go to capital improvements on that very service. But when we're seeing year over year that this is the level of cushion we have, and we're still asking folks to pay more, even if it's 25 cents here and $1 here, and then all of a sudden it's a $3 increment each year over year. It's just, I have a hard time going back to the folks at home and saying, well, we're stuck because Richmond. That doesn't sell.
I understand. And there are, beyond CSO and beyond the revenues that we receive for the water fund, we do have a lot of other infrastructure issues, as we discussed earlier.
Yes.
That we're not addressing. We're working on it, and we're doing better than we used to do. And we're investing more in our water system than we did before. Budgeting's tough when we have a lot of variables. The water use, for example, that also, I didn't state it, but that also, the lower water use we have, the less chemicals we use. So that's actually included in there as well. So trying to predict water consumption over the year, it's very driven by weather. So if we have a very dry year, water use is a lot higher, and associated revenue is a lot higher. Emergencies are very hard to predict. Last year, we didn't have any major emergencies. This year, we've had a major emergency that we don't know the full cost of yet. It's going to be pretty significant. So when we budget, we want to be conservative and make sure that we have our rates are adequate enough to meet the debt coverage requirements, meet the fund balance requirements, meet the consent order requirements. And then as we're going forward, we try to put a budget together that meets as many needs as we can, but realizing that we have many, many variables that we're trying to balance. And again, trying to be conservative so that we're not under on our targets as well. So
I don't want to hog the time. Thank you for your answers. I know it's very hard to respond to. I'm just trying to reflect when I go back to Ward 4, what folks are saying and why it's very difficult to swallow year over year. It's gone up and then this is the result. But
right.
But thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on this?
Yes, when we have a big break like that, do we have insurance to offset that?
There is, we do have self-insurance, and it will help, potentially will help some. Most of those expenses, though, are covered through our operational expenses. So we have, and also we look to see if there's anything to be covered out of our capital fund. But in this particular case with this break, we have a large bank that eroded. We have a retaining wall that has partially collapsed, and we need to stabilize that. So that's really not a capital expense. It's probably going to come out of our operational budget. So this coming year, we'll see that in our quarterly reports.
Thank you.
Okay. Move on to stormwater if you want.
All right. All right. Stormwater fund. Overall, our revenues were about $143,000 above budget. About $63,000 of that was because of new impervious area, new construction and development. And one of the things that has played a big factor in not only the stormwater fund, but the water fund and sewer fund with revenues is the interest earnings. We had pretty significant additional revenue and interest earnings in the stormwater fund, about $80,000. Stormwater expenses were about $400,000 below budget. And the operation and maintenance budget is about $165,000. We had an increase in personnel services related to overtime, related to stormwater system maintenance and repairs. We had savings in our engineering, the use of engineers for permit compliance. We did a lot of that in-house, so we didn't have to contract that out. And then we had some savings related to purchase of stormwater materials. And then also stormwater fund transfers money to the general fund for services provided by Public Works and Community Development. And that was $84,000 less than we budgeted for. Non-departmental was about $16,000 under budget, with about $200,000 savings in debt service. And that was a lesser use of line of credit and project delays associated with easement acquisition. So easements have been a big issue for us with a lot of projects. It takes a long time to get through the easement acquisition process, and trying to figure out exactly how to plan projects associated with that is pretty challenging as well. I'll note in my narrative, there is an error referring to the water capital fund. It's actually stormwater capital in the stormwater narrative. And then for the financial position of the stormwater fund, we have a debt coverage ratio of 2.46 and a fund balance of 39%. I'll be glad to answer any questions about the stormwater fund.
Anyone have questions? Questions, comments? No? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, moving on to the general fund.
Yes. Greg's asking questions. So you heard the presentation of the audit by Brown Edwards and Chris Banta today. And this just kind of gives you a little bit more of the detail behind some of those numbers. And also, I just want to make a point that I know City Council received an analysis of the unassigned fund balance over the weekend. And that is compared to adopted. So when you're like, wait, these numbers don't quite look the same. We have always done the quarterly reports compared to amended budget. So just making sure if those things don't look like they completely tie out, that's why. The amended budget is going to take in consideration all of council action through the fiscal year, where the adopted budget is just that. It's the adopted budget. So those adjustments are not on there.
Okay.
So we did end the fiscal year with a $47.4 million general fund unassigned fund balance. But of that, $9 million has been appropriated in fiscal year 2026 for your pay-as-you-go funding for city capital. $4 million was appropriated to waive the motor vehicle license fee and trash fee in fiscal year 26. And $513,000 was appropriated for first quarter adjustments for fiscal year 26. So the ending balance is $33.8 million at this point. And you just have to remember your unassigned fund balance is a snapshot on June 30th. So there's a lot of accounting entries and adjustments that are made to give you that snapshot on June 30th. And July 1st, that number looks completely different. And this is some of the reasons. So the 26 budget was adopted with a 10.3 unassigned fund balance. So our restricted, committed, and assigned, those fund balances had balances of 11.6 million and 15.3 respectively. And the reason that we do this is called GASB 54, and it was implemented about 1999. And because if you can remember back before that, and Dr. Wilder, I'm sure you do, that you used to just have a designated or undesignated. And GASB did a new requirement that we split those. So that helps us know what's available as just leftover budget and what is actually committed to pay for something else by council, and then what can be assigned by the city manager for other reserves that are set aside for future use. In our revenues, at the end of the fiscal year, we were $2.3 million more than the amended budget. So that's all revenues. Those are your taxes, fees, ins and outs of everything. So two things that we look at very closely is our real property tax. We actually were under budget by $767,830. So we didn't quite meet our budget. For our personal property tax, we exceeded our budget by $355,683. And as you know, those are the two revenue categories that the General Assembly gives localities the opportunity to offer rebates back to citizens if those are above what is appropriated in the budget. So with that, real estate did not meet the budget, and personal property taxes $355,000 more. So that 355 is what would be available as a rebate for personal property tax. Our consumer utility tax, we were pretty close to budget there. It was $118,000 more. Communication sales and use tax, we had $201,000 more. Local sales tax was $604,000 more than the amended budget. That's the closest it's been in a long time. We really are not seeing the year-over-year growth that we did right out of COVID. Our business license was about $109,000 more. And then our meals tax, we actually missed it by $822,000. So it did not grow in fiscal year 26 or 25 the way we anticipated. Our delinquent tax penalty and interest was quite a bit more, about $1.1 million. Some of that is because interest rates did rise, so we were able to get more off our investments. And also for our delinquent tax collection, I'll pit my billings and collections staff against anybody. They do an excellent job of collections, and they had a very successful year. And our other local taxes were about $116,000, and those are just a lot of our smaller taxes. And then motor vehicle license, of course, was waived, so we did collect $45,000 of new license fees. And bank stock tax was about $198,000 more. And then again, lodging tax. When we look at our consumption revenues, this one we missed by about $430,000. We did not meet our budget. We really saw a change in our lodging this year. Airbnbs really did well, but some of our hotels that have been very successful did not have as good of a year this year. But so again, and I think part of that's part of the economy where people maybe didn't travel as much as what they normally have. So we are seeing that little bit of a dip there. And then our other revenues here are a little bit more than what we amend in the amended budget. Interest on investments, again, that's where we see part of that interest for our investments. The interest rates went up. So again, I mean, we really had a good year. I mean, the ins and the outs of the flows, we did okay. With our expenditures, we were at 95.7% of the amended budget. So we ended with about 10.3 million less than the amended budget. Now, 3.3 million of that is from our school's return to fund balance. And that gets moved in the ACFR to assigned fund balance. So that is included in this report, but when you compare it to the ACFR, you'll see that that's already been moved to assigned fund balance. So overall, we did okay. At one point during the fiscal year, when I was seeing our consumption revenues like our meals tax and our lodging tax and our sales tax not grow like we anticipated, I did ask our department heads to kind of watch their spending. It's like, come on, y'all, I need some help here because our revenues aren't coming in as close. And if you end up with, out of a $240 million budget to have a surplus in revenues of $2 million, that's a little closer than I like to be. That's what keeps me up at night. So I did ask our department. So that's part of the reason they didn't spend their full budgets, is because they really tightened their belts to help me out to make sure we were going to end the fiscal year well. It's important that we have that leftover money because really we don't budget, and y'all have heard me say this, we don't budget for maintenance of our buildings the way that we should. And so if we don't have this leftover money, our buildings don't get maintained the way they should. So to me, this was good. It's great to have that leftover funds that hopefully will go into the 27 budget to help maintain our buildings. But happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Feraldi?
So a lot of numbers have been thrown. Okay, so my intent here is to walk through this in a very simple way so to make sure I understand it, and then importantly, the folks at home do.
Sure.
So the big number that people see is $47 million. And when I was first elected, that was significantly more. It was 60, 70 million. And I was very intentional, or tried to be. I failed at it sometimes. I tried to be very intentional in saying that number is $29 million more than expected. 47 million is a lot. Help me understand, when applying this number, what is more than you expected from what we are asking or mandating the citizens pay in taxes?
So on the revenue side.
So when I own a house, a car, this is what we are mandating you pay in taxes. And what of that is more than expected? Because what I've come to understand in my 6 years of doing this is I was drinking the Kool-Aid by a former colleague of mine and not fully understanding what a surplus is. So here's the example, and then I'd love for you to answer the question. Here's the example. I had to replace my HVAC this past year. It stunk. But I was saved up for it, and I paid for it and got it done. Let's pretend you have to pay for an HVAC system at home, and it's $8,000 to $10,000. So you start saving. But for whatever reason, you're unable to pay for that HVAC system at home. And now you have $6,000 in your bank account. There's a delta there. Is that $6,000 considered a surplus based off of new money? No, you couldn't do a project. And that's what the bottom of this sheet is. But if your boss finds out and says, hey, Chris, I heard you were trying to get this done and you couldn't. Well, here's an extra $3,000 that you weren't expecting. That is money I wasn't expecting to earn as an employee. That's a surplus. Conservative budgeting is not the same as a surplus, or at least that's what I've come to understand it. And so what I'm trying to paint a picture of, if the HVAC system is about $2.5 million from the schools, for example, they didn't spend all the stuff that we appropriated for. And that money then comes back. That's not in my understanding of what a surplus is. But if we take in more sales tax or meals, or paying more on car tax than what we expected, that's where we need to be saying, hey, whoa, time out. We need to say time out on the other one too, but that's from a different angle. So I hope that's context for the question. What bonuses, to use my example, what additional tax dollars did the city take in that it wasn't expecting to? And I'll start there.
Okay. So I think big picture, total revenue we brought in more than we had expected, $2.3 million. Now, I think part of the difficulty in answering that question is parsing out what is tax revenue versus what is not tax revenue, right?
For example, we have $500,000 in interest on savings. I don't consider that something that the taxpayer fronted. I pushed my credit card and 50 cents went into the high yield savings account.
So I handed all of you out a spreadsheet ahead of time. And on that spreadsheet, there's a table that shows a breakdown of that $2.3 million in revenue we received above budget. I think you could make the argument that current real property tax, which is the first line item in that revenues table, current personal property tax, general property taxes, And other local revenue, other local taxes are definitely tax revenue, right? You could also make the argument potentially that permits, fines, and regulatory licenses may or may not be a tax. Beyond that, most of these other items are not what you would consider necessarily tax revenue. So your number is going to be somewhere between 1.3 and 1.5 million dollars in tax revenue above budget that we've received. I think I'm answering that.
I believe you are. So let me flip the coin. And if I may, Madam Chair, I have a point with all this. So let's pretend the $850,000 from the federal government was not in the red. Let's pretend it was in the green. Okay, so we're saying, so under the logic of, well, you have a $47 million, 44, whatever it is, $1 million surplus. If that was nearly $1 million from the federal government, under that logic, would those dollars we're getting from the feds or the state be considered a surplus?
They're dedicated.
Yeah, I mean, most of them you have to use for but no.
That's what I'm driving at. Is there are things in this bucket that by the way we do our balance sheet, and then maybe if this is a soft criticism, maybe we need to figure out a way to really break this down in a different way. If we're getting dollars from the feds and the state and we're charging for services, which in a conversation we had would be like, hey, I went to Parks and Rec and paid the $5 fee, or I went to this event and I paid the registration fee. Those are things that impact the $47 million conversation and then is used in the public and folks start asking questions. Ultimately, what I'm driving at is whatever we said we were going to budget for, police, fire, schools, services, the Templeton Center, the library, what have you, met the budget. And then the city taxed an extra 1.3 on top of that unexpectedly. As in it took in more taxes than it thought it would, which in the grand scheme of things, 1.3 million out of 235 is pretty darn close to your point.
It's a lot closer than Donald likes.
It's closer than Donald likes. The point is, it's like a third of a percent.
Right.
Am I making sense? Am I making sense to my colleagues? That's what I'm trying to explain is this $47 million thing has a lot of stuff inside of it. So let's boil it down make it very simple. We took in more than we said we would. And I mean that with jest and sincerity, by $1.3 million, not $47 million. That's my point.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think for me, taking it a step further, so because there is a lot of misinformation, I think, being spread about the 47 million. And then I think on this sheet, even further to what Mr. Farley just said, we only brought in 2.3 million more than anticipated, which is better than nothing. That's great. We always want to be on the positive. So yay. Of that, only three for the real estate tax and the personal property tax, only in the net positive was from personal property, which was $355,000, a little bit more higher than that. So what could be rebated to our approximate 80,000 citizens by law would be that, because we only were in positive of the personal property, which, I mean, every penny counts, but it would literally be pennies if we divided 355,000.
Almost that.
It would cost more in postage than to cut checks. So it would make sense to do that. We were at a loss on real estate by almost $767,000. So for our revenues, $2.3 million was what we brought in total. Of that, again, taxable for real estate or personal property was only in the positive $355,000. So the $47 million, I guess maybe to go further for our citizens and the media and the room to help them understand, we ended the year, so where this $47 million came from, maybe explain what does the unassigned general fund balance mean? What is that pot of money? What is, when we say, that term, what is that? What do we, when we end the fiscal year with that number, what does that mean? What goes into that? Because then immediately you have here, we ended the actual year with that number immediately we took 13 million out of that, and then 513,000 out of that. So then we started the fiscal year with the 33 million, because then for our policy, we had to take the 10.3% and put it into our rainy day fund. So we take that out so that if we have emergencies throughout the city, we have that money to pull from, which the water pipe bursting could have turned into one of those emergencies very quickly that we would have had to use that money from, correct?
Well, thankfully, that would have been the water
Yeah, that
funds.
would have
Fund
come
balance.
Okay, well,
Yes.
any other
The logic
When
applies.
when 12th
emergencies-
Street
when 12th
fell
Street,
into,
right,
yes,
right.
when the
So that
hillside
is the
fell into
purpose
12th
of
Street.
the allocation of those funds for emergencies. God forbid we need it. So, and the reality is now we really only have 9.4 million left, correct?
Correct.
That is to be used on one-time expenditures, which Ms. Witt, you can elaborate on why that is, because we talk about the pots and piles of money, the different terms you use, and as to why we can't return this money back to the citizens, because we, again, in this misinformation that's been spread of this surplus, there's an expectation that that surplus can be returned back, which it cannot, because what is in the general fund, that is not money that can go back to the citizens. It has to be explained where the money's come from. It also has to be explained why it cannot go back, and then what we are allowed to do with that money. So with that said, go, please.
Okay.
It's a lot.
I always start with it's an accounting thing. So when your revenues are more, your expenses are less, they fall to fund balance at the end of the year. So they fall into this unassigned fund balance. So, but again, the 47 million is a snapshot in time. So, and what is left from the 25 budget is not what got spent for 26. It's what is left there to spend for 27. So it's an accumulation, but again, a snapshot on the day of June 30th. So we do go through this calculation to say we had this many revenues that were over budget. Our expenditures, thankfully, were under budget. And so our fund balance grew by $7 million for June 30th. But council action uses that money for when we figure it out, whether we set aside our at least 10% by our financial policy, as much as 15%. Right now, we're at 10.3%. That gets set aside as a true rainy day fund that's there for emergencies. So this has built through the years. Now, you were saying you remember when it was 68 million on June 30th, but again, that was because our revenues grew so much more than what we anticipated through COVID and shortly thereafter. And so, but those dollars were available then to be used for one-time expenditures based on our financial policies, which for the most part is used for capital projects. So it is what's left on June 30th. Whatever can fall to fund balance between more revenues and less expenses, that falls, it helps your fund balance grow. But then immediately, council spending priorities come out of that budget. So it is truly a snapshot on that day. That doesn't mean it's cash available.
Another way to look at it, and I'm asking this as a question for you to tell me if I'm misunderstanding. If we have $47, not 47, $47, council has already adopted a budget with the expectation there would be leftover money. And of that $47, 25 of it is our reserve. 1.3 of it was more than we thought would be coming. And then 10 of that is approximately savings because we didn't spend on some stuff. All that equals 47. If I'm running a business and I have a coffee shop and I've got a refrigerator that needs to be replaced, that's a capital item. By the end of that fiscal year, if I don't fix it, there's savings because I didn't do it. Am I missing something here? Because ultimately, we're looking at $25 million for a rainy day fund, which if we didn't, yikes. We're looking at $10 million in things that didn't get bought, which is actually savings. But on the balance sheet, that means it's considered extra surplus fund balance. And then 1.3 in taxes we didn't expect to get. Am I misstating something there?
So imagine a world where this is your personal household budget, right? And this unassigned general fund balance.
For the folks at home, just yes or no, and then keep going.
Yes,
Thank you.
you got it. This is your personal household budget. You've got a savings account, right? And you look at your savings account at a point in time, and you've got $47 million in there, right? That feels great, but there's a couple of things that you got to remember about that savings account. First, you've actually already spent $13.5 million of that because you had to do some work on your house. You had to do some work on your car. That money's already spent, even though it's sitting in your bank account, right? So you got to take that off the top. Then you guys are loyal followers of Dave Ramsey, right? And you want to build a 6 months or some period of time of cushion. So if you don't bring in any revenue, you can still pay your living expenses. That's your rainy day fund. Well, you've got, of that 47, you've got 24.5 million that you've set aside to make payments in case something bad happens, right?
If the federal government shuts down.
Like if the federal government shuts down, for instance. So while you were feeling great about having $47 million in the bank account, when you look at it, what you actually have is about 9.5 million, right? So while it feels good to have 47, that's not reality. What's reality is you have $9.5 million to spend, and you have that $9.5 million primarily because during the last year, you were pretty wise about your spending. You know, there was a time when at work you weren't getting as many hours as you thought you might get. So you told your husband or your wife, hey, listen, we got to slow our spending down a little bit this year. I fear I might not get as many hours as I typically get. So you ended up with a little bit of savings. And that's really where that remaining $9.5 million comes from.
So 25, 10 plus 13 plus 1.3 is pretty much
Close.
47 mil. Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, one final question,
shut up.
because I think we've heard it from some people. So based on the 2.3 million that we were above in the revenue, but being at a deficit in our real estate taxes and just a slight positive in the personal property, those who, because they've gotten this kind of mal-explained, that are saying, oh, we could have lowered those tax rates because we had a $47 million surplus. One has nothing to do with the other. The $47 million surplus that they're hearing about and the way that it's been explained versus the reality of it. The tax rates of the 2025 tax rate, the personal property and the real estate tax rate have nothing to do with the $47 million surplus. It has actually more to do with those numbers I just gave, the $767 million shortfall for real estate and the $355,000 positive for personal property, correct?
Correct.
So meaning that we could not have gone down in the real estate rate and they would have gotten more money, seen as savings in real estate because we actually didn't even meet our need, correct?
Correct.
And that they only saw slight savings in personal property. Like we said, if we divided that amongst the citizens, it would have been pennies. So I just want to make sure that is explained, that again, we're talking, things have been conflated. So I just want people to understand that is not the case. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I don't think, just make sure clear too as well. As far as the final fund balance, is it the 9 million that we have to allocate to one-time expenses?
That's what we are anticipating to be used for the 27 budget. That would be available for council action for one-time items in the 27 budget.
And then we'll come back later at that point to say we have this available to do whatever.
Yeah. It'll probably come to you in the proposed budget, so it'll fund some of those maintenance.
Yeah, okay.
And it'll at that point in time, it'll likely be slightly less, just simply because the rainy day fund number grows if the budget goes up each year. So
Could we,
appropriate a line item for budgeting, municipal budgeting 101 class for maybe some of us?
I'm gonna recuse myself from this.
Okay, any other
That's what
questions
makes
on
it-
this topic?
No, thank you.
Okay, does this eliminate number 5, or is this the same thing? We still need to go further into number 5? For the other
Yeah, we've still got
information?
we've still got
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple more.
Oh, okay, number
Yeah.
26. Okay, go ahead.
And I can do those quickly. In your packet, you also have the position vacancy report. It's just in there for your information. It was requested to be given to Finance Committee when we did quarterly reports. So this one is dated as of December 2nd when we ran it. And this is across all funds. There was 101.99 positions vacant. It's getting harder to find people that want to do what we do. Our general reserve for contingencies, after we restored the funding, the $25,000 for the Central Virginia Alliance for Community Living from the unassigned fund balance, we're back to our full reserve of $1.2 million. That includes the $50,000 of the city manager's discretionary funding. And then looking at our monthly revenues we've received through September. When you look at these, our sales and use tax, thankfully, we had a really good month of September. It was up $166,000 to adopted. I'm hoping that continues, but we'll see. Consumer utility tax, electric were flat with budget. Meals tax, thankfully, we're up about $187,000 above budget, but again, it is minimal compared to what we were expecting. Lodging, again, we're under budget by almost $50,000. It's coming in right there at budget, but hopefully that's going to grow some. And then our amusement tax, we're about $31,000 over budget, which is great to be flat in our amusement tax. So happy to answer any questions. And the last item we have is we were requested to put the, we don't call these minutes, we call them record of votes for the committee. We don't have a clerk to do official minutes, so we just, it's more of a, we keep
Summary.
track and summarize the votes that were taken at the meeting. So that is included in your report,
Okay,
your packet.
any questions on those? Okay, roll call.
No, I don't. You answered everything. Thank you, so appreciate it. Clarifying all that.
Just thank you. Appreciate you guys. And I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, too.
Same, appreciate all of y'all's hard work. I know how much you always are doing, and numbers, lots of them. So we appreciate all the compiling you do and research and your staff, because it is I know, a lot of work. So everybody here appreciates you. Mayor, we appreciate you. And everybody who's hung out today, we appreciate you. Everybody drive safe. Lynchburg City Schools are closed tomorrow, in case you didn't know.
And just really quickly, if I may,
Yes.
since we don't have a official roll call, and I know winter isn't here, there's been a number of snowstorms that I've seen in the city in the last 10, 13 years. The roads have been really, really solid. I just have to say, I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent, but they've been really solid. And I think those folks have been working their tails off.
Yes.
And they don't get a thank you enough. So
True.
I wanted to highlight it, that the roads have been really, really well maintained. So
Yes,
thank you.
shout out Public Works.
Especially on the back of a water main break.
Yes.
They've really been working hard.
Yeah,
A lot,
so
yes.
shout out to Public Works, to our PD and fire departments for, answering the call even when it's been dangerous. We thank you for all, just everybody. Team Lynchburg, we love you. And our next Finance Committee meeting is Tuesday, January 27th, 2026 at 3 p.m. Happy holidays to everyone if we don't see you again before our next meeting. Merry Christmas, and we are adjourned.